terms of Singapore, we have I guess 3 sessions in a row in a sense, right? We have our 2 Australia Asia sessions. Like we're starting off with Design Singapore, and I'll soon introduce Mark, who's actually the head of Design Singapore and a friend of mine from, my God, like I think it's like scary. It's more than a decade now. But literally, okay, so we have Design Singapore, then we have chemistry talking about this table, and then the very, very first person on global main stage curated by Headquarters is actually a Singaporean, and her name's Dr. Rosemary Tan, and it's amazing, right? It's a woman, and she's an entrepreneur, and she's a scientist, and she actually she's a huge Star Trek fan, and she loves giving space for her people to experiment, and explore, and invent. And in fact, when SARS broke out several years ago, she was already developing labs on a chip. So it's like these little chips where you could test several diseases, right? So she was very inspired by, if you've seen Star Trek, you have the medical officer, McCoy, or, they have these medical tricorders, and she was very inspired by that, and she wanted to create that in real life, So that's a really amazing invention, and then she created a business and around that. And in fact, when COVID broke out, she actually already started producing these test kits, and she's distributing that. So I'm really looking forward to listening to this story, because I'm going to read it myself.
Same here.
Yeah, but anyway, that's number 3. So number 2 is the table, and number 1 actually is someone that I should be introducing right now. So as I said, Mark, I met 10 years ago, and I guess maybe some of you guys don't remember 10 years ago, but it was very, very distinctive to me, right? I came back to Singapore, and there was this guy who was an architect, and then he was very passionate about something called design thinking. I mean, at that time, nobody knew what design thinking was about. And he knew people from IDEO, and he was very passionate about it himself. And he actually created this I guess it could be Singapore's first ever design thinking festival in Amara Hotel. I remember it very vividly because I went to it and like, wow, this is so fascinating, having a user-centric perspective. But long story short, I mean, that was like in 2007 or something, right? So quite recently, Mark has become the head of Design Singapore, which is Singapore's design agency. And then, I won't tell you too much because he is very better prepared to explain more. And also, he's going to be showcasing designers who are actually doing stuff. The title of the session is Design Amidst the COVID-19 period. So, okay, so I'm going to leave you guys with Ivan, the good hands of Ivan, and head off, and then please bring Mark onto the stage. See you next time.
Yeah. See you, Dave. And welcome, Mark. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Are you able to hear me?
Very clearly.
Yes. Hi, Ivan.
So Dave gave a brief intro, but I thought it'd be great, Mark, if you could tell us a little more about yourself before we go into your session.
Sure. So just thanks for. It's the first time I'm on the campus party, so just super happy and excited, and just kind of looking at what's happening in the live chat. Everyone could be from everywhere, but so my name is Mark. As Dave kind of had shared earlier, I've known him for a long time, which pretty much starts to date me and Dave about how old we are. Although I would say Dave is older because he's not on screen, he can defend that. So, how would I describe myself? I'm an architect, artist, educator, and a designer. My background originally is an architect. But like Dave said, always been very interested in the value of design and in his ability to play as a horizontal in, just as a mindset and just systems-based thinking and all those things. So I've always been one of the early guys in this whole design thinking, kind of strategic design space, and also in some of these earlier new fields that are getting quite hot now, such as experience design. And so right now I head up Design Singapore. It's a sort of national agency for design. And what we do is we really we take care of the design industries. We think of how to grow them. We are advocate and also think about how design can be used as a strategic enabler of across businesses and for the economy, or even in the social space. And another thing we do is we look into the how we can develop talent for the country as well. If any of you all ever come to Singapore, or obviously for those who are in Singapore, we are located at the National Design Center, so we have our own premise, and in there we often hold exhibitions and talks, or just get on our website, right, and just subscribe to our follow us on social media, or just subscribe to our email list, because usually we put out a lot of things also on digital, increasingly so because especially now with COVID. And that's been really awesome. So that's a little bit myself, Ivan.
Fantastic. And you're not here alone today. You've brought with yourself, right, a group of really interesting designers and other design thinkers.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I don't think I could fill this up for 2 hours on myself, so I brought people. I'm not sure whether we can put them on stage, but I was, as you had known, when Dave first asked me to kind of pull together a program or topic, right? I was thinking, and I gave him the title of just designing in Singapore in COVID. And I think what I hope today's session with my panelists would really touch upon is really around, I guess, obviously, I think the three of them would give you a sense of what kind of design is going on in Singapore, the interesting design roles out there, what some of our designers have done during this whole COVID situation, and also we'll have a great conversation around where we see the future of design, which is obviously a huge topic right now, given how the world is obviously going to new normal. And so, I would love to invite the rest of my panelists or guests, I guess in this case, or friends, right?
And so so shall we invite them on right now?
Yes, please.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
We've hit a new normal when we have to when we meet online. This is sort of like a bit sci-fi, but we're living it. So I thought, I know prior to my guest coming on board, I had given a sort of intro around the topic, but I just thought also before we kind of get into things, maybe just I want to introduce the panelists, and then maybe introduce a little bit about the structure also of how we're gonna maybe use the time we have today. But first of all, I thought long and hard when I was still putting together this thing around designing COVID and also thinking about what else could I use the time for. I'm not sure how many of you all know about what the design scene in Singapore, but I've been being very close to it. I do feel that there's a lot of exciting things happening, and obviously there's a lot of great work actually happening. And what's interesting for me is that design is really kind of expanding to all sorts of areas, and there's new design roles, and designers are being applied to to designing new things that they never did before, like experiences and services, and just being able to have to solve societal problems. I think more than when I was even kind of growing up, and I felt this was a kind of powerful opportunity to bring that. So what I have actually is I pulled together 3 panelists. I think Melissa, right? Melissa Chan. She's from I don't know. Well, maybe instead of introducing me, do you want to say hi yourself, Mel?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm a designer with GDS GovTech. So I work on predominantly digital products, but as you will see later, we look at also the experience around when you introduce new digital components to existing experiences and ecosystems.
Yeah. So she's definitely got slides to help you understand what she does. I want to introduce Jie Yi also. He's from his own agency called Start. Hi, Jie.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here. I'm a designer, and I actually run a design agency in Singapore called Stark. we're a community of practitioners with different backgrounds, and so the projects that we kind of work on are quite diverse. And during COVID, I think we came together and wanted to contribute something to the community at large as well. So yeah, we'll have a little bit of chat about that later.
And last but not least, this very hairy man in the screen, his name is Pan, and I think many of you all, at least in Singapore, you'll know him. But I think I'm very very honored to have him on our time today. Hey Pan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Hi everybody, thanks for being here. I think I'm a co-founder and a creative director at this local agency called Kinetic. We are a small team, but we always team big, so we always have fun doing our best for any projects. We specialize in 360 communications, so design, advertising, digital. We all matter into all these areas. I think later I'll have some time to share some work. So I think I can't wait to hear even our own panelists talking. So I think I'll keep it brief here. Yeah, over to you, Mark.
Okay, so I think with that, I mean, this is how we're gonna do it today. We were obviously deliberating on how do we run this, because I understand from Dave, in a real campus party situation, we'll actually be physically sitting next to each other and drinking coffee. But now, I guess I see Pan drink his water and I have my own, but I think we're quite far away. But we're gonna basically start with Jie, and then Melissa, and then followed by Pan. But I think what they're going to share is really about sharing a little bit about what they really do as designers, to give you a sense of what the breadth of design they are kind of like meddling in, as well as what they have been doing during this COVID situation. And just to give you a sense, in Singapore, we had a what we call circuit breaker for the last about maybe two-ish over months, where we were largely, most people, we were all sort of staying at home and really trying to minimize sort of interaction to be able to kind of bring down the kind of COVID numbers. So since then, obviously, even though people are out and about, many of us are still working from home. But I think what's been precious is just seeing how even these three have been, what they've been doing with their own agencies in during this situation, and using design to just make life better for everyone. So, and then after that, we'll launch into a conversation around the future of design as well. After every presentation and talk, we're going to open up some time for Q&A. So if you have some questions, please write down your live comments, and then we'll try to take it and then just sort of roll with that. And at the same time, after the future of design presentation, chat, we also welcome Q&A. So I think this is how we're just going to run with it today. And I think to start it off, I just want to invite Jie to kind of just kick it off and maybe just share about himself and what he's doing and what Stuck is doing during this.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I'm really happy to be here, and it's really, really nice to see a global community, in the live comments. Maybe I'll just introduce myself a little bit. I'm a designer in Singapore. My training was actually in industrial design, but we have learned over the years to kind of go with the flow, as well as always having this existential question about what design can be. I'm a co-founder of a company called Stuck, which is a design agency in Singapore, together with two other friends. And that has been always on our minds whenever we think about how should the company move, or what should we be doing so that we are relevant and we can really continuously create value for people. I'll be sharing some slides so that you get a better understanding of what we do, and at the same time give you a little bit of context about the things that has been done. And I guess that will help with the conversation as well. I'm really a big fan of design process and design thinking. So I'm an educator myself, teaching part-time in local universities and institutions, and a proud father of a 2-year-old son, which I'm trying to apply all my empathy and design thinking methodology with him. Sometimes it's really necessary as a parent to even just understand what the kid is running through in their heads. I hope you can all see my slide. So I'll go into presentation mode. As I was saying, we started Stuck about 10 years ago, and all the founders were actually industrial designers. So product design in certain ways. The team has grown over the years. We're about 25, 26 now. And that was like, the profile shots, but in actual fact, in reality, this is how it is. And I thought it's nice to share a little bit of why we started and what we think this company is about. And we always see it as a community of practice. So a lot of our kind of designers are our ex-students, so kind of been with us for a few years in universities and graduating and deciding to join us as a professional outfit. And the way that we approach design is always through debates, through discussion, and it's really like a community of people that shares common values. So culture to us is really important. Naturally, this is pre-COVID. Now with social distancing, if I had time, I would have done a social distancing picture, but now. So something that I would like to share is that we always believed design has the power for change, right? And the question is, as an enabler or an enabling process, what can design do to really help shape people's lives? And we realized very early on, even through industrial design projects, I'll show you a little bit of what we do, how we evolved as a company or as an organization. We really needed to learn, or rather to ride on our clients' outreach, so that you could actually influence change through commercial projects or through projects with clients, one project at a time. So as a designer or as a group of designers, I think sometimes the impact is quite limited because of reach. But together with clients and their reach and influence, I think the impact of design will be amplified in that way. So I won't go through all this, but some examples of products that were done are, like, for example, the first kind of like Asian fitting mask for children with a respiratory kind of system behind it. Rehabilitation gloves for stroke patients, which we were quite happy because the client had an agenda to reduce the cost of rehabilitation glove in the market. Their competitor benchmark was like 15 times more expensive. So this could make it much more affordable for a lot more people. Helping local companies to pivot. So this was a water heater company that started licensing technology from a Singapore kind of government-backed research agency. So we helped them develop the technology into consumer products. And sometimes just helping innovators. And these innovators in this case were really young children. And it was a family project that they realized that a lot of elderly fall down and lose their mobility because they were trying to pick up the cane. So you can imagine as when you are really old, and mobility is such an important thing to keep you healthy and keep you active. But when you lose that, I think the quality of life and health just goes all the way down. So we thought that it was a really meaningful project. They had a proof of concept, and we kind of did it pro bono for them to get to a manufacturable state so that they could actually produce this and sell it at an affordable price to everybody. I wouldn't disclose too much about this, but this does show the transition of our company from industrial design kind of company to one that goes a little bit more into strategy and experiences. So we started building apps and digital experiences, and this is a kind of a survey tool. A little bit sensitive to talk about this since it's a voting day tomorrow. But this is a tool for the government to be able to have a sensing of the precinct, which is your neighborhood. So what do people think? But the very kind of traditional ways of doing survey is not getting the response that they really wanted. So they came to us and we started working out with them. It's still a work in progress on how do we actually engage citizens in a more engaging manner. We're also involved in the skills framework for design in Singapore, where we chart out the pathways and skill sets that's required for a design career, design role in Singapore. And I think you can see the shift starting to move away from tangible products into a little bit more strategies, a little bit more experience-driven. And we are really very thankful to be given the opportunity to start designing things early on. Like, for example, setting down guidelines for architects and kind of preschools to determine together with the government how should the environment be. So we're not experts in any of these subject matters, and I think the only thing that we're really good at is putting together a process that listens to people and then start putting together the right team. In fact, we flew a Japanese architect from Tokyo all the way in Singapore to collaborate on this project because he really had chalked up a lot of experience doing preschools in Japan. We were also involved in a mixed model of care or a nursing home in Singapore, which modeled after a lot of the European models of a kind of aging in place and a kind of a village kind of setting. But in a land-scarred Singapore setting, that was not really possible. So we needed to reimagine how this could be done in a local setting, and this was through a kind of like 3 to 4 months research project. We're happy to know that it's going to be built in 1 to 2 years' time, and work with an architect firm on this one as well. I think a big part of what I would like to share today is that besides being an invisible force that you could really influence through your clients, I think design always draws its relevance when it is applied in context, in a situation where you feel you need to do something about it. And for us, design is just a skill and vehicle for us to do that. And we believe that as a kind of a participation and active citizenship. So I think it's not just about citizenship in a country setting or boundaries bounded by race or countries. But I think it's also about being just human, just as a global citizen as well. We do that by expanding our community. We do teach. We provide whenever we get a chance. We'll try to go and have a little bit of talks or sessions, and we even go out to primary school or secondary schools, and we try to reach out to them as well. And sometimes we have requests coming as well for studio visits, and we always make time for it so that we can kind of just build that community or seed that kind of idea of creativity and openness in society early on. So that's something that we really believe in. I'll just run through maybe a few projects before I get to the COVID ones. This was done really way back, like 7 years ago. It was 2 weeks before National Day in Singapore. And in National Days, you have the big parades, right? Where the military, the police, they start having brigades and contingents that starts marching by. And we also celebrate people like the workers and, the nurses, the medical team and things like that. But we felt that we were missing celebrating the actual physical builders of Singapore, which are, we rely a lot on foreign labor. So 2 weeks before that, we're just sitting and saying, it would be really nice to, just give them a little bit of airtime. So what we did was we partnered with friends, and we managed to get ourselves into this foreign workers dormitory, our HDB, which is our housing development estate construction sites. And we set up photo booths, and we started taking pictures with them, and they basically get a postcard that they could post back to home and say that, hey, your Papa is in Singapore building Singapore stuff, and they're really proud of that. So we just thought we wanted to celebrate the other side, the other heroes of Singapore during National Day. This was done 5 years ago, where Singapore celebrated the 50th birthday, and we just basically a few friends, 3 companies, but we're all friends. So we just started to come together and decided to kind of launch 50 souvenir objects to commemorate 50 years of Singapore, and each of these objects were tagged with a kind of colloquial stories and our way of life. So it's just little trinkets that you could take home and a story of Singapore that you could take back. And throughout the years we've been trying to expand our impact through our clients until COVID hit, right? And I think it was an existential question, and we're saying that this situation really lets you question the value of the things that you're doing, because the messaging was that anything non-essential, basically, you should shut it down and stay home, right? So we're saying what is essential and how do we actually help? So, there was this void that you wanted to feel that, if you could use your skills to do something and to help the global community or even the people around you, what would that be? And we looked at ourselves and said, we have got no money. We don't really have a lot of investment or money. And so we can't really roll out huge things. But what we have are our skills as a designer, and we built a team over the years, starting from 3 people to 20 plus. We thought, okay, let's just offer our services for free. So I think many people thought it was an April Fool's Day joke. We launched it on 1st of April, coincidentally, and we were saying that, okay, we're going to just put this out for free. And anybody in medical, healthcare, or spot a need for innovation, you could just contact us. We even signed up for a new phone line for that, so that we could have a dedicated call center for that. It's a WhatsApp line actually. I'll just share 4 projects that came out from it that's kind of published out. So one of it was that we have a few doctor friends, and they've been following this university that was advocating using black box, it's like a container to help store your masks so that you can reuse them. Because in the medical setting, they need to maybe have a lunch break or have a tea break, right? But once you take out your mask, you might get cross-contaminated with your surroundings. So this is a way that they took a video of it and showed how you could store a mask and reuse it, because the PPE equipments were really quite precious, right? So how can you reuse it without cross-contamination? So we thought, hey, why not we just provide a UV sterilizing kind of lid we just replace the lid and replace it with a UV sterilizer. So that's what the team did. They bought a UV sterilizing wand from online, and then they took it apart and they rebuilt a 3D printed product like this. We distributed this kind of prototypes, as we call it, to our friends who are using actually in some of the clinics. But I think it's just a way, and we kind of put it out there just to further the discussion about how do you store your mask in a safer manner. Some of these issues, I think there were a lot of kind of aerosol guards and shields coming out, because in the procedures, especially those that require a little bit of tubings and things like that, there'll be a lot of aerosol particles that comes out, and you kind of need it to protect yourself from it. So, but the problem with that is that you can never assess the patient when you're doing it. So this was coming from one of the doctors as well that kind of WhatsApp us, and we started putting together how do you create a self-closing or self-opening kind of pothole that allows you to put your hands through this kind of shield or this kind of cubicle, but at the same time doesn't need you to fiddle around too much, because I think time is definitely of the essence in such a situation. So some developments, and you can see actually all these are actually prototyped by either friends or partners or even in-house, like in their own house, literally in-house, by our designers, and yeah, kudos to them really putting this through. I have a few background scenes for you to see later on. It's quite funny. And one situation was also about moving patients who are COVID positive between hospitals or between spaces. And usually what they have to do is once they move them, they have to sterilize or clean out the entire place. So that was a really resource-intensive and time-consuming process. So we're wondering, could we design something that allows the patient to kind of contain his aerosol particles within himself while in transit. So it's not meant for long term, but it's really meant for transit. And this was kind of like product that we put out to just share with everybody openly. So all these projects you are seeing now are actually things that we just share online, and once we kind of got that problem statement, and we are not really trying to resolve it. In fact, a lot of these projects are still in development, but what we wanted to do was to quickly put something out so that we can build on each other's efforts, and that's what we've been doing as well, building on each other's efforts to just maybe hasten the innovation or the refinement of this kind of developments, and let everybody in the world to just take it on. I mean, another thing that's a little bit lighthearted is that people are not really staying home or really not used to the idea of staying home. So we created kind of door hangers and activities for the kids who can't go to school to be able to participate and understand the concept. Why do they need to stay home? So we kind of released that template for online as well. Some of our graphic designer friends got back and said they want to participate, and they actually did up some of those variations, and we kind of just posted it on our Instagram. Yeah, we do have an Instagram, so if you'd like to follow, do a little bit of advertising. I think one thing that is really, really heartening to see. In fact, I wasn't really super involved in this one because I was handling a 2-year-old at home and trying to also finish up commercial work, right? But the team I had to give all credit to the team, especially the younger ones who stayed up really, really late. And the turnaround time is crazy. It's like maybe 1 or 2 weeks we need to give a prototype and try it out on site. So I think that the team really worked really hard. They moved 3D printers home. You can see Chiong, which is our senior designer there, bending wires for a shield guard around his flower pot. So he had to select flower pots which had the right radius, and he was bending it by hand at his home. And I think there was taking apart things and all this 3D printing stuff, funny stuff that's all over their place in their houses now. The process was that everybody chipped in before bed, in between, while in the toilet, just do some sketches and start posting out. And we all had different skill set. So some of us were really good with our hands, like that's Feng Ling, who's actually still an intern. And she built great paper prototypes, and she's testing it on her mother, herself. And they're all made of paper and plastic, which before, when Singapore had a circuit breaker, a lot of the non-essential services were closed. So before they were closed, they went to the bookstores and really just snapped up all the paper and plastic sheets that they could get. So because they knew that we were going to do something like that, so they were trying to stock up in terms of material. That's akhbar there, which shows that a hijab, which is a modesty veil for women, it works that way as well. So I think there's a lot of these kind of things ongoing in our kind of like company group chats. So I just end here maybe just to free up the time for conversation. But I think we are still open, and we really hope that whatever we can help with, we will still continue to help. I think the battle against COVID for free, because I think that's what we have. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, they're going to bring Mark back on. Mark, I think you're muted.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, thanks for sharing. I mean, I know we've been seeing some of and hearing about what y'all have been doing through the press and through social media, but to see it it's really incredible. Yeah, thank you. It was really inspiring. I was wondering whether we just have a few minutes for Q&A. I just want to see whether anyone out there has any kind of pressing questions, anything they want to ask TIE. Please type away or just share. Maybe in the interim, right? Are you all still working on other projects that you were not able to show? I'm just kind of curious. What was the response to your first April sort of call to action?
Yeah, we're still working on quite a bit of we call it the COVID projects, and many of them we are kind of unable to share. And also because of the sensitiveness, also rather it's kind of sensitive for maybe the medical kind of environment. So I think a lot of things has to be validated before we actually release. So yeah.
There's a question here.
Dave.
What is an Asian fit mask? Okay, that is something not for me to answer, but for Tia to answer.
Yeah, so at that time, I think that project was launched about maybe 5 years ago by also a local company, right? At that time, most of the masks were actually not fitted for Asian children size. I think that was the key, because they were all oversized, and when the mask is oversized, there will be air gaps, right? And so it deems it not as effective in providing the protection that is required. So at that time, the idea was that, okay, this mask has to be fitted to Asian children kind of ergonomics as well as data set. So they went on to scan, I think, almost a few hundred children of a certain age range, 3 to 7, if I'm not wrong. And with that, they calculated the mask dimensions and best fit in terms of shape. And that was then they started producing the different sizes for the children as well as adults. So that's the Asian fit. I think it's really just based on data set so that you fit the population a little bit maybe accurately. That's all. Yeah.
Wow. There's another question, right, from VJ. Thanks for your wonderful presentation. Just want to request if you could share how this incredible and good comes from. I guess if I understand that, it will be, how come you all are so incredible and good? Yeah, I mean, I guess where does this sort of sense of purpose and sense of just wanting to contribute as a community back to our community come from? Where do you think that comes from?
I actually don't. It has always been ingrained, or rather, it has always been there. But as we started growing, we started to realize that it was important to attract the right people as well. And And so we actually spend a lot of time just talking about what design is, what design means, and you'll be surprised. I think a lot of young students or design students or design graduates are actually questioning the value of what they do, right? So it's actually important to kind of have that discussion, and when you do, and everybody will take it differently, and everybody will kind of take back with them what they feel they could do with their skill set. And I guess in a special situation like that, it just kind of brought it up. But it has always been, especially for client work, we always advocate that it has to have real value and real impact. If not, it might turn a little bit frivolous for us. Yeah. So it has been that self-attraction, I think, by the culture.
That's awesome. That's really incredible. Thanks, man. Keep it up. There was another one. There's another question I see. Yeah, is there? Did I pull it up? Advice, I'm passionate. Do you have any? What do you think?
Well, I mean, internally, well, this is a safe place, right? I mean, internally, we always say product design is a sunset, right? I mean, things are getting more, experiences are getting more metaphysical, more digital. And so you could also see that from the 10 years we have evolved, right? Which product design was almost like 100% of what we do, to now it's only maybe about 30% of what we do. You're right in a way to say that it's a lack of security, but what I feel is that product designers have a very unique training as a discipline, and that is to understand both emotional qualities as well as functional qualities of an object or of a design. And that is quite critical when you apply it on digital experiences or when you start applying on design strategies even. So what I'm trying to say is that I think the skill sets are transferable. And when you learn product design, even though you are giving form to a thing, the process of giving form, the mental articulation of why you are making certain decisions is actually applicable for any kind of design. So in that sense, I think there shouldn't be a sense of insecurity, but what you could change from that sense of insecurity to a more empowering kind of action is to look at what you have as a process and try different projects with it. Because if you have no portfolio, then naturally you might feel insecure that you might not be able to do it well. And design is practice, right? So the more you do, the better you get. In that sense, it's to learn that, use the product design process and apply it on digital experiences, apply it on kind of strategies, apply on different things. And I think the other very important thing is to look at the other applications of design, their different processes, and kind of integrate them together with your product design process.
Cool. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Jay, for just sharing with us. I think later we'll kind of bring you back as we have a chat about design. And yeah, super inspiring stuff. I thought this would be a good time to bring out our next person to share, Melissa. So how do we do this? Can we exit? Hi, Mel. Just like, yeah. And bye, Jay. Hi, Mel. So I think without further ado, I know you work in GovTech. You're a designer. We've known each other for a while, and all I can say, I know that you have an interesting design background and you've studied many different things. So maybe with that vague introduction, could you maybe just share with us what you do and what you've been doing during this COVID time?
Sure, thank you. So let me just share screen. So the screen will, the stuff I have will sort of address some of those introductions. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for having me on this panel. This is me. And this is me, I would say not literally, but figuratively. In real life, this is Jean-Claude Van Damme straddling two trucks. But as you'll see later on, I have a point to this image and story. So as Mark mentioned, I have done lots of different things, and my journey has been, at one point I felt was quite disparate. So these are kind of all the job titles at different places, working for different people that I have done before. And you can see it's kind of started from wanting, having the ambition of being an interior architect and designer. And actually, I've always wanted to be a designer since I was the age of 4. I also want to say, if anyone has any questions as I go through, please do write it up there, because I'm going through things on my slides very quickly and perhaps in a choppy manner, just to illustrate some of the points that I want to make. So you can say that my early experience centered around the domain of retail, and I did a lot of work, and one thing that characterized my career and work at the time is it was retail across different scales, from window designs to interiors and showrooms, for example, like this Aston Martin showroom, to designing the interiors and strategy for shopping malls, and in the end as well, looking at the strategy across neighborhoods and newly designed cities. At the time, there was a lot of interest in the Middle East, and a lot of building and wanting to create these vibrant neighborhoods and cities. So that actually was very much the world I lived in and worked as a professional. Retail insights as well. So we talked about the future of retail and what we believed it should be. Then actually I got very excited about the practice of wayfinding and signage, because it seemed to bring together and combine a lot of different parts. So partly the urban scale, where you have to actually help people navigate the city, and at the same time the materiality and the graphic sensibilities that goes into making that piece of signage relevant and eye-catching and understandable for people. So that was, I thought at one point that I was going to be a wayfinding designer for the rest of my life. But then I encountered design thinking. And so to me, this kind of resonated as a way to practice design, as a way to incorporate research into a design process, and also to prototype. Something that Jie would know very well, being from an industrial product design background. But in the end, a lot of what I did in that phase of my life, experience design, design thinking, methodology, all still tied me and tethered me to a physical space and experience of a built environment. And I thought to myself, how do I get into something like innovation, which was quite exciting at the time? And how do I bring in more that I know our lives are becoming more digital, and digital transformations happening all around. And so this was almost the last architectural interior project that I did, where we looked at the experience of this building. And from there, I just jumped wholesale, and also signage, of course. And what I was telling people at the time is I joined the dark side. But actually, on reflection, it was also joining the light side, because I wanted to do work that was much more meaningful to myself. A lot of the times in private sector, there's always this component of the bottom line. There's always clients that eventually still need to make money, and design aids in that process and in that ambition. So right now, I'm at GovTech and at Government Digital Services. So the department is responsible for things like, if in a Singaporean context, Moments of Life platform, if you have encountered that, SingPass Mobile. So the team adjacent to mine does a lot of SingPass, of the development and design on SingPass Mobile. Things like individual agency websites, but a lot of the time it's across government platforms. And so in the name Government Digital Services, we look at digital transformation not only of internal processes within an agency, but also the interaction with citizens if they want to, for example, register a birth, register a death, and all the things that in big moments, actually you don't want to deal with the government, you want to sort of experience it for what it means to you, but you still have to. So we're trying to ease that pain or inconvenience when doing some of these administrative things. For myself, I co-lead a project that works very closely with educators and innovation within the general education landscape. So I look at it as an intersection between design, technology, and education. And we look at education as an ecosystem of parts, and also what the user experience is, what the learning journeys and experience of current students and teachers are to make their lives better. Okay, let me just... So I see, we're coming back to Jean-Claude. So I see myself as a designer, doing the splits between sort of the design world and the tech world, and moving between these worlds. A lot of the values can sometimes be conflicting. There are people in the tech world that also don't understand the value of design or what it brings beyond a user interface. So this is one of the things that I sort of think about and grapple with. And this sort of illustrates that as well. Another thing is, even within my own team, we see benefit in putting together teams of thinkers and makers, design researchers. On my team currently, I have design researchers, UI, UX people, people who can code quick prototypes, digital prototypes, and people who are straddle the physical and digital making world. So they're able to come up with how the digital, how we see something as a digital interaction manifests when you pick things up and they're artifacts, more than just a laptop or iPad screen. So we're exploring all these things. And with that, working in government, there's always tension and trade-off, as I'll talk more closely with examples later on. The tension and trade-off comes about because a lot of the time we're designing for hundreds of thousands of people. And with that comes different considerations. Your user group is not always so clear and so direct. And so we currently talk about like the tension even between doing something beautifully and the tech constraints, and also how people will use it easily. So some of the stuff that I've been working on during the last few months, when the pandemic hit our society, one of the things that happened around April was the shutdown of schools. And because we work very closely with people involved in that environment, we pivoted very quickly to try to understand what some of the pains and experiences of teachers, students, parents were. And in the end, a lot of the work I would say we did for education didn't necessarily impact straight away, beyond sort of volunteering to try to get laptops in the hands of students, or getting Wi-Fi dongles. So even with a laptop, they might not be able to access their internet based Zoom lessons, and also go onto their classroom management systems. So for a lot of our insights, we hope are actually going to inform the future beyond the season of the pandemic that we see right now, to form long-term sustainable solutions that will help with home-based learning, HBL for short, where we're taking care of more social needs of students and emotional needs, and also teachers and what they have to go through and how they have to suddenly take on a lot more. And this comes in the form of perhaps policy or social interventions. One thing I'd like to highlight as well in what we did during the last few months, and this is not this was not my team personally, but another team that sits within our tribe, is the focus on inclusivity. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the time when we consider who our products reach, it's hoping to reach the 100% of citizenry so that people can use the best of technology to help them in their everyday lives and also transact with the government. And one small effort in a way makes a big difference, and that is when a group of designers and engineers came together and decided that they would want to help people who are visually impaired be able to do the safe entry check-in, which is Singapore's version of part of contact tracing. And I'm not sure if a demo can be shown, but as we go through it, it's basically verbalizing what the functions and buttons on a screen are.
VoiceOver on. SingPass Mobile. SingPass Mobile Home. Resource Hub. Safe Entry Check-in. Which service would you like to log into? CPFE Services. Health Hub. Button. IRA's My Tax Portal. My HDB page. Button. Nav Settings. Button. Possibly. Settings. Settings. Heading. Account. Change passcode. Enable Face ID. Enable Face ID. Help and have an issue? Give us feedback. Other. Siri voice commands. Voice commands allow you to use SingPass mobile services with Hey Siri. General. Scan safe entry. Scan safe entry. Safe entry check-in. Rows 9 to 19 of 21. Rows 1 to 11 of 20. Add to Siri. Button. Cancel. Button. Add to Siri. Button. Item. Button. Drive. SingPass Mobile. Location, Pat Jalong KAYU, 550, add to favorite. Location, D&S Mini Mart. Address, BLK 520, check-in to. Within. Check-in, button. In progress. Check-in successful. Safe entry, heading, SingPass Mobile, now, safe entry pass, D&S Mini Mart, 1 packs, July 8, 2023 01 p.m.
That. And even though she sounds a bit stressed out, the voice actually really helps with the visually impaired do simple things like that we with full sight might take for granted. And this isn't something like a reader that is laid on top of an app or a screen, because sometimes within the code the app itself is not ready to be able to be read. So like if you had seen the demo, what gets read out is more useful to the reader than perhaps something that just says button. They wouldn't know what's going on and how to proceed. So something like this really improves the use and the range of how safe entry can be implemented, and takes into account the limitations of perhaps the last 10% or the last 5% of the of what we call designing for the 100%. Another instance that illustrates that, and we talked about tensions and trade-offs, but I'm just using this example of the Trace Together token, and many of you might in the area and the region might know about Trace Together, developed by GDS GovTech. I'm not saying that this is the most beautiful design, but obviously there's certain trade-offs to get this into the hands of people that might not have mobile apps or be able to be that digitally savvy. So this was a solution that was adopted to make sure that people do have Trace Together on them, mostly for seniors. In the papers a couple of days ago, they announced that the first batch of this dongle has been issued to 1,000 seniors to pilot and see how it works. Another design project that came out of the COVID era and the circuit breaker period was this initiative called Visual Aid by my friend and ex-colleague Jason Liao, and the service designer that he works closely with, Shima. So they were actually brought in as service designers and design researchers that to look into a digital translator app that would help frontline workers communicate with people that did not speak the same language as them. And in the end, through their research and sort of design thinking or whatever you call it, they realized that doctors and nurses don't find it natural to take out their phone and start using a digital platform to try to communicate with their patients or whom they're trying to elicit certain symptoms and characteristics. So they came up with a very analog laminated piece of paper that hospital or medical departments could just print out for themselves, laminate to keep it sanitize and clean, and use that as an analog way to communicate what they needed to between both parties, rather than just jumping into a digital solution, which I thought was kind of the spirit of design and how we're solving solutions that don't need to be digital. Okay, so I know that we're talking about the future later, which I have a few slides on, but that's kind of the gist of what I've done and what I do. So welcome comments and questions. So maybe Mark, do you want to come back on? Hey Mark, you might want to unmute.
Okay, thanks, Mel. Thanks for sharing. That's amazing. I mean, even just amazing that you are doing that within government. I mean, the GovTech alone is, I think, super interesting. And yeah, I'm just wondering whether anyone in the audience out there have any questions to ask Mel and about what she or some of the work she's shared, and or even what GovTech is doing. I just thought it was really. I thought it would be meaningful to invite her on a panel, because she's actually a designer operating within the government, designing at the intersection of technology and services. And I think that's just a whole new space on its own these days that not many people understand. I did read an earlier question around, I think when they saw your safe entry for the blind, that you're on. It's not you. It wasn't your voice.
No, it wasn't my voice. It's a demonstration of someone enabling Siri to voice over and translate I guess it's text to voice, but more than that, how it's been encoded into the way you can use something like text to voice and help sort of the margins of who we design for easily used and easily have affordance to the same digital technology as everyone else. What's next after GovTech?
Yeah, please go for it.
Well, so still at GovTech, but also the next thing which we'll also be touching on is what happens after things settle down. So with everyone else in the world really, and designers particularly, I would imagine, this huge disruption that we have experienced this year is going to leave us in a different place. And so a lot of what we'll be doing in the umbrella of innovation is to talk about what's going to be new, what are the sort of challenges and the change in paradigm that has occurred, and also what are the gains, what are the things that people have learned to do even as they've had to struggle and pivot and learn to do things differently in the last few months. I mean, two sides to the same coin. When lockdown came for Singapore, actually a lot of my friends in civil service and myself and my teams, we became more busy than before that. And while it was both fortunate that we still had jobs, but there's a lot of us that are thinking about, okay, so what happens next? How do we prepare, and how do we think about sustainable design in the public sector?
I think there's another question from Darwin. Do you feel the need to compress time in these COVID times, and did it affect in any way the results?
So when we did a lot of testing in home-based learning, we knew that we had very little time to actually immerse ourselves and observe and interview the people that this really impacted. So for those who don't have children or don't know about home-based learning, when all of the schools shut down, things moved to Zoom, things moved to remote learning, as well as using our ministry's flagship product, which is a student learning space, where a lot of the assignments for the day, where students might not have face-to-face time with their teachers, can be assigned to them and they can complete their tasks. So we scrambled. We had 4 days to set up a new research tract, and we had about 2 months to sort of get our results out, and it did compress the time. We didn't necessarily come up with any solutions at the time because, for one, teachers and students don't want to talk to you when you're asking them questions. They're just sort of taking it day by day, wanting to make sense of what's going on, and to pivot, every few days, every few weeks. So what I see, what we learned during that time is more to add to long-term decision making on what a blended learning experience could be. For example, the Minister of Education has said that there's possibility for there to be, and this was announced, one HBL day or home-based learning day, perhaps a month, a week. That hasn't been decided yet, but there's an expectation, like, now we can do some things differently, but how are we going to do that, and how are we going to explore what that affords students and teachers to do with the either extra time or the different ways that they're going to go through teaching and learning.
I think there's it could be one more question before we could end off with, but is there one? Yes. Could you share any of your experiences with accessibility features with other disabilities?
I think predominantly we are focusing on the visually impaired now, because a lot of our the services and the journeys that users might take in interacting with us and our products come from this, right? So this is a predominantly visual-based device and interaction. So one of the things we are looking at in our explorations is what happens if it's not through a screen, that it can be something a bit more haptic, tactile, and also using more of the senses. But I think currently at the core of our products and our mission, because a lot of it's digital and comes through the screen, we are trying to tackle that for the visually impaired.
Cool. Thanks, Mel. All right. When I still recall the sort of the Trace Together app, kind of crazy voice, it gives me a bit of shivers. Anyway, okay, we'll get back you on board. Thanks for sharing. I think we'll move on to Pan, but later we'll all kind of come in the same room. But thank you so much for sharing. Super interesting. And I guarantee you that whatever Pan is sharing is not going to be anything close to what you just shared. All right, cool. So I think, just thought I wanted to introduce Pan, and and I guess for this, as the last speaker, panelist, we're going to do it slightly different, I guess, in the way Pan has always done life. As you know, Pan is I don't know, later he explained, I think he's worked in visual communications, brand, and all sorts of things. But I think what I thought useful was when we were discussing around kind of presentation, how we should do it, and we were talking, are there too many slides amongst the three of us? And Pan went to think about it, and then he told me, he said, Mark, we're going to go fully analog today. I'm not going to have any slides. And this was initially coming off thinking of he wanted to do a lot of quick slides. So, which is why we're going to do this last bit together. I'm going to be on screen, and maybe it's a way to have a conversation together, and then Pan will be able to share. So I think it's an opening question, Pan. I've known you, but maybe it's a way to introduce yourself. Could you share a little bit about yourself and what Kinetic and and what does Kinetic do?
Yeah, of course. More than happy to do it. Again, I would like to thank the organizers for having us, for us to have this opportunity to share what we do in Singapore to the rest of the world. Of course, you talk about me going fully analog today, so instead of having some digital slides, I have some paper slides. So I actually printed on some recycled old office paper and just wanted to share with the audience what we do. So this is us. Okay, this is our shop house along Joo Chiat Road. Joo Chiat Road is quite a famous street in Singapore. So we are staying in. Our office is in this so-called conserved shop house. So it's quite a nice pre-war shop house.
It's a nice neighborhood.
Yeah, very nice. We have lots of good food actually. So if you guys are in Singapore, do visit Joo Chiat Road. There's a very famous street there called Koon Seng Road that has wonderful pastel-y coloured shop houses that attracts tourists almost every day. But of course, due to COVID-19, we don't see much of these things happening these days. I'm sure you will come again. And anyway, this is us. So we are a small team. This is us on stage collecting awards. So we are an award-winning agency focusing on anything communications. So it could be design, it could be advertising, it could be digital campaign, it could be some special events, or if not, spatial activation and whatnot. We like traveling the world, so every year we will travel someplace for our team building trip. So last year we were, not last year, it was this year. This year we were just in Spain, Lisbon. So we had really a good time. So that's us. And why we are so close together, because we always believe in this motto. It's from one of my most I like this coach a lot, really. So it says the strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each member is the team. So this is something that that we believe in, and that's why I think team playing is very important, especially in these days where we hardly see each other. We are all working from home. We are just zooming. So actually, partnership and actually how we were and how close we were actually help make it easier, a lot easier. So I think today I'll really talk about only one project. So for those of you who are wondering what do, I did not really prepare any projects for you. So if you're interested, you can go to kinetic.com.sg to see what we do. So that's something you can go. I think instead of plugging right at the end, I plug right at the front. Maybe right at the end, I plug one more time. So if you like us, you can follow us on Instagram at _kinetic_sg and my personal one at Panlim. Okay, so that's awesome. So much for today's advertising. Okay, so COVID-19 to me has been, I would say, a merciless teacher. It changes the way we live and work. It kind of showed us really how vulnerable we are. Even we thought that we had a lot of methods in place. All these methods were all, in this period, out of whack, right? So Singapore had this thing called a circuit breaker. We don't call it a lockdown because it wasn't 100% a full lockdown, but it was almost a full lockdown. We call it a circuit breaker. So at many times we rely on essential workers, frontliners, to do stuff for us, especially for our industry. We do have documents going around, and all of us working from home, we are afraid to maybe go out to buy food, so we ask for delivery, and delivery has become quite a popular choice. So in Singapore, it's quite common that you see delivery guys coming, and there was this article on Straits Times, which is our national paper, that talks about delivery services to ensure that they are safe and don't spread virus, right? So actually that in short comes to this very, very common thing where everybody knows. It's called contactless delivery. So if you Google, all sorts of contactless delivery will come on. So for us, we thought we are just comfortable at home, and when the doorbell rings and it's contactless, the guy will just leave the food or parcel outside, and we just say thank you. But I think the insight that we got was contactless delivery does not have to be heartless. So we thought maybe we just do a very simple thing. I don't think this is like a huge gesture, but I think kindness comes in all sizes. It can be in small or big packages, but to me, I feel that as long as we are doing something good and we feel happy about it, I think that's all that matters. So we started thinking hard, and in the end, we came up with this idea called Thank You Delivery Heroes. So where is that sheet? Okay. So this is the website. If you want to go and see, the site is still on now. Called thankyouDeliveryHeroes.com. Okay. So we actually designed a website, and on this website, you can actually see this how roughly the website looks like. So you're encouraged to download the posters. So on the website, we have 24 designs, now currently updated to 26 designs of posters that you can click and download, or you can just print directly on the browser. You will print out in A4 size, and there's some other designs. So as you can see that the designs are all quite varied, and they are all quite different. Reason being, we felt that it should be a bit lighthearted, and because we always thought that if we can have a website with these posters where our audiences could download and print out and stick on the door, and when the delivery guys come, they are able to read the message and probably they are happy about it, or maybe put a smile on their face. So that was our intention. So we had tongue-in-cheek headlines like "You make my day bloom even though I'm stuck on Zoom." So things like that. So it's always fun and quirky. I like this one. This is really funny. So, and then a hero comes along. Can you read? So our lives can carry on. Thank you, Delivery Heroes. So you can print this out all in A4 size from the website. We have this funny one as well. You saved the day, mask rider. Then we have the mask rider wearing a mask and delivering stuff. Then we have our the one that's more iconic. That's on our website. Is your hardship that gets us through these hard times. So things like that. Then we have simple ones like ride safe. So we can write this out together. Hashtag Thank You Delivery Heroes. We have this come rain, come shine. You never fail to come with your packages of cheers. Things like that.
Nice.
And this is something I love as well. You deserve way more than 5 stars. Things like that. So there's also a message that says, please have some stars and snacks on us. So we are also encouraging our audience, our families, to leave snacks outside the door. It could be a mineral water. It could be just a small packet of cookie or whatnot. So that was our intention. And we also had some considerations when we were working on the campaign. Will people really print it? How many people really do have printers at home? So part of the process was we kept the design in A4 size because we know that a lot of people do not use A3 paper. So that's one thing. Then what if those people who don't have printers, what if those guys would say, oh, my printer is not working, I can't do this? So we understand there were all these problems, but we were ready for it. So we, in our communications in Instagram, we encourage people, if you don't have a printer or your printer is not working or you don't have any ink, you can actually just write a message. Just say, thank you. And that's it. You don't even need to really do much of a design. It's just a thought that counts. Then we also took into consideration, as you can see, that all the designs were all pretty much on a white or very light colored background, because I think a lot of people are very concerned about using too much ink and it's expensive. So we kept the thing light. And of course, the messaging, they were all light-hearted. So I think during this period where everyone is a bit high-strung, we thought that it should be something light-hearted. So yeah, pretty much like that. So when we launched the campaign, and this campaign, there wasn't any client, so everything was really ground up from our agency. We were quite surprised that people really participated in it. So this is just a bit of a summary of a collection of what people posted, and these were all happening. People were all sharing on Instagram and on Facebook and whatnot. Wow. And I have some close-ups. So for those people, when we talk about those people who have no printer, this artist was pre-rock. He said, "Oh, I don't have a printer, doesn't matter, I'll draw it out." So Mark Ong from Sabotage drew this.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, he drew this, and yeah, and he pasted it up, and he shared on Instagram.
Love it.
Love it. This is cool. Another person drew it. Okay, I mean it's awesome. Okay, collecting all this.
That's awesome.
Then I have another one.
What
You
does
go to
that say?
different spots. Yeah, thank you. Then I love this one again. Mariah Carey on. Come on, man. What is that effort again?
Wow. She drew
This
it.
is really just effort. This is really A for effort. Then I have, of course, it's pretty well done actually. All these, they're quite nice, brilliant. So things like that. So from one content, he created more and more content. And there was something quite surprising for us also, because a lot of parents are stay home with their kids and they have never kind of looked after their kids throughout 7 days a week. Because most of the time they drop them in school, they go to work and they don't know, there's maybe not so much of taking care of. So kids were at home and we were surprised that, okay, this one I have to be honest, we didn't plan for this, but it just turned out well that parents also love this project because it became like an activity for the kids. So we have kids at this drawing. Cute, huh?
Oh, wow.
This drawing. So
Brilliant.
yeah, this girl did printed out in black and white and they did it as a coloring.
Oh my goodness.
This one,
Brilliant.
she did their own.
Oh,
They
coloring.
yeah. This one wasn't even colored. They did everything from scratch. So this is
My
cool.
goodness.
And a family of kids just doing this together. So
That's
for us, I think that's also quite meaningful. I mean, for us, we didn't expect much from the campaign, but when it happens, we just feel, wow, actually, Singaporeans do care, right? Singaporeans do care. So about leaving food outside, you see, people started delivery drivers take one. So they left food for them. This one built a special rack just for them.
Oh my
They
goodness.
left snacks, and some of them I zoom in. The snacks were legit. Okay, they are not those lousy snacks. They were like all quite expensive snacks.
That's awesome.
Okay, we have this. There's more of this snack.
Oh
They
wow,
left
that's a
drink.
crate.
Yeah, there's a crate. So frankly, there are a lot of kind people out there. There's also one right at the bottom corner, chisels and twisties and
I
whatnot.
love it. I love it.
This one is the most elaborate. Oh my gosh, he left drinks in a box and all that. Yeah. So for us, I think,
That's so heartwarming.
yeah. So to us, this was something meaningful for us. But I think the bonus of it all was when the media picked it up and we were covered in quite a number of websites, newspaper. We were covered on national paper. That's the whole team holding our favorite posters and doing a Zoom, and we just did a group photography using Zoom. And yeah, so in short, that was the whole journey of us working on this project. And yeah, so it started that way. We didn't expect much. We just wanted to do something. So the results were quite encouraging. And yeah, pretty much that's all I have to share. My presentation is pretty short, but we thought that this is something that I want to share with the world. Yeah.
That's so amazing, man.
Yeah.
I personally have a delivery of photo Heroes poster outside. I think I need to buy some drinks. But no, I
Thank
mean
you.
that's really amazing, right? It's really it's a movement, right? It's not just artwork, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
So-
mean, I thought it's a really good time to open it up, but for some questions, but maybe just I wanted to ask you, Pan. I mean, how
Yeah.
did you personally feel about it when it took on a life on its own? I mean, you know, can you share how you felt as a designer and did you feel that you could make this kind of impact, or is that something that was even overwhelming you and your team yourself?
I mean, of course, we with every project when we launch it, we hope that it will turn out into at least a small movement, right? So I wouldn't say that this has become a movement, but we did see real interactions, real participations. how do we feel? Of course, we feel quite, we are of course happy with and encouraged with the kind of support and the positive response that we got. So for us, I think we are not, I mean, in a way, the way I am, I usually really just moved on with my project. So every time when we launch something and we feel that we put our best in, then I will look forward to my next one and next one. So I hardly spend a lot of time to, so-called taking in all the happiness and whatnot. It's just the way I work. So I will just move on quite quickly to the next project. How can we serve our clients or how the community better? So pretty much like that. So, but I did get some response though, very, very minor. I did get people messaging me that says, actually, don't you think your effort would be best used for something more serious? Like, don't you consider helping maybe a campaign surrounding medical people like the nurses and whatnot? Don't you think they are more deserving of this pat on the back than delivery guys? I had messages like, hey, well, how about janitors? Those guys spend so much time cleaning, their pay is so low. Why don't you do something for them? So these are all, to be honest, difficult questions. But I think the part that a lot of people fail to see is we are actually not we're not an NGO, we are not a public service, we are not a charity company. We are really like a commercial company, and we really took 1 week of our time just to put out the work on something that we feel that we can deliver best. Or maybe probably at that time, we did not have an idea that we love that pertains to putting up posters or something for the janitors. It's not that we don't care. It's just that maybe from our ability, we did not crack the idea yet. So it's just something like that. So sometimes it's hard to please everyone, but I do understand where they're coming from. And I also do recognize that, of course, there are a lot of people going through a lot more hardship than maybe delivery guys. But I don't know. I don't think we are the people that can, for us, I mean, a small thing, I don't think we can save the world, but we just do a little bit by a little bit. Everybody contributes, yeah.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is that thank you for that, because I think it gave a lot of joy, and it just, I mean, there's a comment that Ben Tan is making around how it's just made it a more lovable city for us, lah. And I mean, personally, I think what it's done is that it allows me and my family to at least have a way to interact, right? Because in this time, right, we're all at home, we're not really interacting with people and interacting with strangers. And even though sometimes you can when you open the door and you're seeing the person there or the delivery, but sometimes if not, you are making the interaction. And I find those things extremely meaningful, and I think they become all the more precious during this time. And I love the fact, like I said, you come from a branding and visual comms background, and maybe it's not so obvious, it seems, right? How do you contribute to all these in such a time, right? But I think you really brought a lot of joy. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Anything else you want to say? Because I thought, given the last half an hour, we could pull everyone in and have a chat about the future.
Yeah, get everybody on board, man. I think that's the fun part, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
let's pull everyone in. I had a hard time choosing which of the 24 posters I had to pick up. That was the hardest choice for me. Yeah. I don't know. So I think this is our last, 27 minutes, and I thought what we would do is basically open up a conversation around what the future of design is. And at the same time, for those in the audience, please feel free to just keep on writing, posting questions to us. But I think I'm just going to open up with this question that's on everyone's minds. A lot of people are asking us, we are thinking, what is the future of design? Because we all accept that the world has changed. And I don't know, I'm sure you're getting that, but anyone willing to share your thoughts around to that question? It's a big question. Okay, Tia is smiling, so I'm gonna make him answer.
That was the don't make me smile.
Oh man, okay. I mean,
Yeah, it's a big question. It's a big
you want to
question.
think about that, or can you answer that? I mean, to get a ball rolling. I mean, it's not a one to it's just a rolling conversation. What's your response?
I mean the situation it hit everybody by surprise, right? And I think not just in design, all walks of life. It's kind of something that everybody's asking themselves, questioning what's essential, what is truly meaningful, and what is valuable in life. I think that's a question that internally we are doing that as well. Like asking ourselves the questions, and I think a lot of the time our clients come and ask us as well and say, what's next? What's post-COVID? What's the new norm? It's a big question. I mean, what's in for design? But just from a personal kind of take from our experience, in our agency, is that it's really just you start to realize how important, how precious interaction was, and how important to believe in something, or rather the team actually believes in something, that they would really want to put in the time in all the difficulties, right, of managing the changes that's happening around them, yet putting in the time to do something that's benefiting other people. And I think that part was that part came out from the team was really very valuable, and I think that gets us thinking of how do we continue to build on that, and how do we continue to celebrate that, besides thinking about what is truly essential. And to be true, to be honest, I think we cut a lot of our internal processes. Like we realized that just from a business perspective, that a lot of things were not needed, and things could be done in a much better way. But at the same time, we start to cherish little things, like sometimes now that we are able to come back to the office a little bit, we start cherishing that moments where you meet each other and say, hey, how are you doing? Like things like that, little chats like that.
Wow. Okay. Huh. Have you been going to office actually since, or basically after this whole situation? I'm just kind of curious, what does work look like going forward? I mean, is this going to be a much more flexibility and recognizing that people will stay from home, or is it really you feel that coming together is actually ultimately still super necessary for your practice?
I think we are still at the work from home stage. So but for those who really require certain like studios, like the workshop and things like that, they do come back, and we start to realize that, for example, we are still doing some industrial design projects, and we start to realize that when we see on computer, it looks really good. So we're doing that, that mistake about looking at computer. And then suddenly we decided to, hey, let's just print this out and take a look at it. And we're like, wow, this is huge. It's like, I think it's still really required to be clear about the things that we are doing. And we start to get a little bit of fatigue, Zoom fatigue. I think it's starting to come in. It's crazy, man. It's like, and you start to worry. In fact, we're onboarding a few young designers. Since we have like 2 or 3 young designers joining us, and we start to worry, like, do they feel isolated? They've not seen any of the team in person, and they are just on board this new company, and So I think we think it's still essential to kind of meet each other. It's just how do we do it in a responsible and safe manner, and that's moving forward. We are thinking about that. Even clients are requesting to meet nowadays, but we say we will still hold that off in certain ways. Yeah.
I guess for clients you don't want to meet, you say let's just Zoom lah.
Yeah.
I guess you have a choice, right? I don't know, Melissa. Anything you wanna? I mean, I know you had.
She got slides. She got slides, right?
For the future. I wanted to talk about what Jerry was just talking as well. Essentially, a lot of in my practice and in our teams, the design is very collaborative. You need someone to bounce ideas off, and as we're stretched thin over doing a lot of different things, pivoting and also completing our core projects, it's getting more and more difficult to keep up the quality of work, because you can come up with ideas and you can keep prototyping and going ahead with the innovation and design and stakeholder sort of relationship. But in the end, some of the ideas might lack a bit of luster, just because you haven't sort of been able to translate some of that brainstorming that we now have moved on to digital post-it boards and digital platforms, and it's been a real learning curve to do that and to communicate over that, and there's still a sense as a designer that that it might have been better when you're all in a room and bouncing off each other. So I for myself, I'm really sort of looking forward to the day that we can build more culture within our team again. As Jerry mentioned, there are a couple of designers we took on board just before the circuit breaker hit us, and they haven't really spent that much time being introduced into the culture of the team. And then as for the future of design in Singapore, I can only talk about perhaps my own practice and things that we saw throughout the last year as we kind of delved and innovated around future learning experiences for students and teachers. We wanted to know what the context of 2030, 2040, the future would be. So we started this work and we came up with, we are not futurists, we're designers, but we wanted to use that lens onto how we might create artifacts of the future or experiences of the future. And even now, after what we've experienced in the 2 months, a lot of that's irrelevant. So it forces us to think about how we might feed in some of this sort of what the futurists might call black swans or events that will suddenly change the things that bounded sort of our realities and what we thought was constant. Just want to flash some of the, these are not quite, they're kind of not quite relevant anymore in a way, but we came up with these sort of stories of how education might go down with and without, in relation to where technology might lead us and the adoption of technology perhaps with not the right values and things like that. So from freshly canned students, if robots start teaching our students, can we not expect that our students become think like robots as well? I mean, that's a very simplification of that. And that was something we termed as a feared future. But at the same time, as my son is now having a coding lesson at the age of 6 in the other room, like he's having fun. Do suddenly do we create generations of children that rely more on technology than on building social friendships and relationships, because that is harder, and we take a lot of this with us when we design our digital products to make sure there's always a human side as well. So that was kind of what I wanted to share in terms of some of the stuff that we came up with. And we're trying to incorporate this idea of looking further into the future, where design thinking is great to think about and try to solve and make impact on current problems. How do we, in our practice and methodology, move beyond a current time frame? Because as we've also known, digital products take time. Even physical products to move to market takes time. It might take 3 years or 5 years, but the landscape around us is moving faster than that. So by the time if you launch a product in 3 years time, the market might not be the same. So we're kind of looking into how to incorporate futures thinking with design thinking. How do we, and I believe that everything that our team does right now in terms of digital services should take into account what happens 5 years, 10 years down the road, because as a product that you want to be sustainable and relevant in 5 years and 10 years down the road, then you should think about it now at its inception.
No, I mean, thanks. I mean, you're talking around black swans, and I think basically people term black swans as they call unknown unknowns, right? Because I think in corporate culture you can plan for known knowns, known unknowns, but how to plan for unknown unknowns? And I actually recently I was listening to a leadership seminar with that Lim Seong Guan was, and he talked about this, about what I thought was very interesting. He mentioned, actually, he said, how do you respond to planning for black swans? And he said, actually, he gave this quote. He says, "Culture creates the future," and that's really interesting. I mean, because Tia, you were talking around how you all have a certain culture. I mean, I think Mel, when you talk also, you said you have a tribe, and of course, Pan, even you always talk about a certain kind of people you look. I guess even in response to this idea of culture creating the future, do you feel that is something that as designers and in your practice, that is actually an exceptionally important thing? What does that mean? I mean, do you see a link between culture and and being able to respond to the future of design even?
Wow, don't know how to answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah, but if I may, I do think that maybe this what I think is of course relating to the field that I'm more familiar with, because um I mean this I mentioned before, I think COVID-19 was really like a merciless teacher. So he has showed us ways that we never imagined this ever gonna happen. Like everybody's at home, studying from home, working from home, eating from home 3 meals a day, things like that. I think this is a huge change. We have seen it, and we all know that this can well happen again, right? I mean, depending on when the vaccine will be found, and whether the virus keep mutating, and the vaccine is always still shifting, and we don't know whether will we find it. I mean, we have heard that this is ever going to be an endemic more than a pandemic, meaning that maybe 3 months down the road we have another. I mean, fingers crossed, we don't want that. 3 months down the road, maybe another small circuit breaker will happen. So I do think that for me, while I don't have any solutions, but I'm ready for disruption. So for me, I think there are a few things I look at. Some parts are more positive. I see change as an opportunity. I don't see it as a big issue first. I see it as an opportunity first. So when comes change, it comes people who can react better. It becomes an opportunity. However, being ready for disruption, because of course I've heard from many friends from the industry that when circuit breaker or 1 month before circuit breaker, everybody start losing projects. All the projects start going on hold. All the projects clients start disappearing. Things like that. They don't know. Even the clients don't know what to do, to be honest. So I think this disruption is something that we need to be used to. I think this disruption should be embedded into our head to know that whatever we are proposing, whether is it for a 2 year later project, or is it like a project that's happening 6 months later, we need to be very, very careful and very, very ready to at least try to calculate what's going to happen if it is an endemic. So for me, I'm just preparing it in that way, in the best way we can, and also to educate the clients that this can also happen, because sometimes everybody have goals. Everybody want to launch a particular product or campaign. They want it to have a road show, or they want to have this and that, but some of these things are pretty much very dangerous things to propose. So I guess it is just a period where everybody need to adapt and understand that moving forward, we can't predict what's going to happen. So we just prepare and always prepare for the worst for me. And with contingency, probably. I don't know, that is really not really talking about the future of design, because really talking about future of design. But I think because of this current situation we are in globally, it kind of lend a different. You feel that designing is not just the main issue now. It's really about how do we bring design to life? How do we even launch the design? That's to me sometimes more the headache than anything. Yeah.
Actually, just to share, I mean, I think there was a recent interview with a foreign minister with, I think, CNBC or CNN around what the future of would be, right? And he mentioned actually in terms of experiences or how what will be valued going forward will be high touch, high tech, and high art. And I guess being artists slash and designers in this, how does that feel? Does that sort of resonate? And then about the need for that, and do you feel that maybe because something needs to be high tech, high touch, which is obviously emotionally engaging, and high art, that actually designers have a natural ability to think about these things nicely? How do you all feel? Excited? Disagree? Don't touch
I
me.
think we fall under one of the category, but it doesn't mean it has to be high tech.
Okay.
I feel that high technology is important, but I think there are other solutions other than technology as well. I mean, I think it's pretty okay for me. I believe in technology. That's why I was totally paying attention to Melissa's presentation. I think it is wonderful. So while I agree that technology is going to be a huge part, but I do think that there are certain things that there are certain projects, like for instance, let's say I talk about Jie Yu's presentation. There are a lot of research and a lot of things, but I mean, plastic and using stuff, they are not like high tech things, but they are things that are equally important. So I don't think that you will really need to be high tech, but I think it needs to be firstly workable on a human level. It must be humane, so that we feel that is very easy to use. I think that's the part that to me, I think is more important than anything. So it's not just about being high tech, but it's more like, can you integrate into our life or not? If it's something that's so difficult, like for instance, I mean, now it's pretty good. Now whenever you do the what's that, the just now you're sharing your check-in run, right? Check in and check out. There was a period where the IC number was never been able to be safe. So every time you check in, you have to key it again. That becomes not very workable. Do you want to use an app that you always have to key in your phone number, key in every time you check in and you check out, and every day you have to do 10 times? No. But once you solve that problem, straight away you can see that everybody's using. It's almost natural. No, seriously, I've been going out. Everybody knows. You see a QR code, hey, let's check in. That's the right thing to do. That's the human thing to do. So I don't know. I mean, that's my lens. Sorry, I leave it to the rest to say. I always babble on.
No. Well, there's a Darwin who said high tech and low touch is a better way.
Yeah, probably low touch.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you respond to that around high tech, high touch, and high art?
Yeah, I think one thing that was very jarring was that the pandemic was a global situation, but the response differs in a very localized context, right? And when that happens, I think when we are talking about high tech, high touch, and high art, sometimes I also feel it's maybe it's going down back to the basics. Like what Pan says is what's fundamentally important for humans, for people, and you see global trade, kind of like all the kind of supply chains being disrupted and things like that. But we're so reliant on that. I think there will be a time where, or rather moving forward, a big consideration about all this more localized setup. And I do agree that high tech, low touch is better in a way that, but you do need the high tech. I mean, without that ability to streamline and secure certain data, I think the convenience doesn't really appear possible in that sense. But I think all the solutions have to be taken into consideration a localized context nowadays. But I mean, technology is borderless, right? So you could apply it. One thing about the future that I feel is important for design is maybe the discussion of ethics, because when things like that happen, you realize a lot of people are sacrificing convenience, or rather kind of privacy for convenience. And even our IT numbers nowadays, your health records, the streamlining of IHIS, right? Health records in Singapore, and all this able to log in with your fingerprint, which your phones actually have, you kind of have some of this data being locked in as well. Your social media. So I think the discussion of ethics comes in, because also I think corporates moving forward, a lot of our clients are the ones that you feel has a little bit of leeway to maybe how do I say this, ride out this pandemic, those that actually has a deeper value associated to it. So you realize that organizations who are putting out value, fundamental value, or things that they have a principle that they hold on to, they typically do not steer away from that, because fundamentally it's always quite anchored and sound. And moving forward, I think ethics and principles suddenly becomes a quite important thing to discuss. And I think it's great designers are embedded now in different organizations, like in GovTech as well, where the discussion of a more human, empathetic, kind of discussion happens, like what happens when you digitalize learning and education from the young, So moving forward, I think that particular area of design becomes as important as a certain skills to bring forth that solution. So it's not just really hard solutioning as how design might have been. Yeah.
Wow. Mel, were you gonna say anything? Oh no.
I guess I can build on that as well. So along with a big push for inclusivity, I'm surrounded by designers that also consider sort of beyond what we might call basic or functional needs, social emotional needs, ethical needs, and sort of values that we as a society that put into place, teach our young, and also sort of live by. And I think it's great that, and my hope is that that becomes translates into very concrete and real results, where design can help to build that from the start, from conceptualization, and even bring to the table some of those values and focus, where a lot of the time maybe it's much more of a systems type of thinking. How do we do things productively, smoothly, conveniently for users? But I think some of these things are starting to be sort of highlighted at decision-making tables, especially the one about inclusivity.
Okay. Well, I think it was very. I mean, we have a last question. Maybe we use as a wrap up. But what a question for the last one. I think.
Sure.
I guess if you're from Singapore, we all know that there was a controversial survey recently on essential jobs, and of which artists were not seen as essential. And I guess how did it hit you as a designer? Because I know for many of us, being a designer, we also identify ourselves as artists. So I don't know, when you read that, want to share some of your honest responses?
I can
I'll start. Wait, Melissa, you go. You want to say?
Okay, I'll bring more of a perspective from a friend of mine who is a dance teacher, and she's in the performing arts, and she does she has a team around her, and they do drama and sort of movement performance involving young children. And I think we had a conversation about sort of the phases and how we start to open. And I would say I'm heartened to see that some groups, like theatre groups, have pivoted and might see how to perform and to achieve the same artistic goals through digital means, which is by no means the same, but having that ingenuity to make the best out of the situation and bringing a lot of things onto digital and things like that. And then the second, another friend is just kind of like waiting for and planning and taking the time to sort of clean house, like Jerry said, what is the main purpose, what is their message, and try to take the time to almost step back from that to be able to move forward more intentionally.
Okay,
Sure.
moving for the other two before we wrap up.
Yeah. I can be totally honest. I read through. I just flipped the page. It didn't even bother me because I knew that because there was just too little information based on why the survey was done in the first place, and as with all things, I don't know the full picture, so I don't feel about it.
Awesome.
Because you don't know the full picture, then I don't really care about it. So in short, my response was, I understand why people are upset, but it didn't upset me because I feel that I don't know the full story, so I just move on.
Awesome.
And I didn't care because I feel that I know what I'm doing. I know that I feel that I know I'm contributing to society, so I don't really care. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was the same sentiments. I just moved on, and I think the survey wasn't taken too seriously at all. And and I think you don't need someone to tell you your job is essential. I think you're doing your job. So,
Exactly.
So I think I can understand why people are upset as well. That there's really no need to care too much about what other people think about your job.
Okay. No,
The best is
so
don't
much.
give it attention. Don't give it attention is the best.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. I think I've just seen some very encouraging, positive comments from today's session. And I just want to say, I see you all as artists and designers. I love the fact that you all recognize that as designers, you're able to connect with people. And that's something precious that we need all the more as we become much more technological savvy. And low touch or high touch, I just keep on doing what you're doing. I just want to give a shout out also. I know Tia and Melissa, for those out there, our Design Singapore, we actually give out scholarships, so they are two of our scholars. And if that, I guess that if you have interest to pursue design and just study it at the undergrad or postgrad level, please look to our website. And Pan is obviously someone who has also won our President Design Award. And I think in the same spirit of Pan, if you want to get us on design, this is our website. And thank you, everyone. All right, we'll end as that. Thanks, Ivan.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. Just he's left with you. Okay, so right. I couldn't think of a better session to open up this series. Since Pan is still here, I'll just show something from his segment. Yeah. So I want to really thank the panel of speakers, right? Melissa, Jia, Pan, and Mark, right? And you can see they're really working hard, and they deserve way more than 5 stars in my book. So and really some interesting conversations started. Please continue to post your questions, right? We will still be able to curate and forward questions to the team. Of course, you can also go directly to the websites they shared, and this segment will also be replayable, right? So very shortly, we're going to have a link on the Campus Party website where you can replay this segment and relive all the moments, including Pan's analog images. So I nearly don't want to stop this session, but we have to move on because of schedule. So Pan, Mark,
Thank you.
Lisa, and Achai, thank you.